pretty much all things. I don't know if you get a lot of the jujitsu stuff. Maybe that I'd lose out on that one. Sure, they do some there. Somebody's got to do it. It's got like 200,000 people, right? Well, anyway, today we're going to finish it up. We're going to talk about Thomas Aquinas. There are 4 philosophers that I believe that are very important to who we are. After that, I think philosophy kind of took a nosedive. It's not to say that other philosophers are not important. But we all start off with Plato and Socrates, right? Sometimes it's just synonymous. You know, Plato uses Socrates as his mouthpiece. And so we start with Plato, then we move on to Aristotle. These two are very important. One was a student of the other, and they disagreed, not over everything, but over some very important things. The idea that the forms exist in heaven, something that Plato held onto, and Aristotle rejected that notion. Raphael's very famous picture of the Academy, when you look it up, and I suggest you do, the 2 central figures are Plato and Aristotle. Plato is doing this. He's pointing to the heavens, as in referencing the ideas in Plato's heaven. And Aristotle is holding a book in his hand, the Nicomachean Ethics, and his hand is down here saying that the forms aren't in heaven, but instead there's instantiations of properties here on earth, okay? The instantiation of essences, all right? So when we talk about essences, that there's something essential to who you are that makes you human, okay? Plato has this concept of the idea of what it means to be human, and that's in heaven, and we instantiate that, okay? Now, we're obviously not the ideal human, right? After that, we talked a bit about Augustine, and Augustine took the Platonic view. He was a Platonist. Go a little further down the road, and we get to Aquinas, and Aquinas is going to take on an Aristotelian sense. Up until Aquinas, Aristotle was by and large lost. Not that Aquinas had discovered him or rediscovered, which he did rediscover him, but he did so via Islam. The Muslims preserved Aristotle. And the Muslims had a great intellectual tradition during the Middle Ages. Part of what's going on in the world of Islam now is their need or desire to regain their prominence on the world stage, but they don't, because America and the Western world has surpassed them in technology. But intellectually, I'm not suggesting Islam, the religion, is true. It's not. But as far as holding on to philosophy, they did a pretty good job. Okay? They were contributors. Okay? Well, anyway, we get to Aquinas, and Aquinas is an interesting character. He wanted to, enter into the monastery. He wanted, enter a religious order, and his family was against it. And they tried to when he left, they tried to get him back. They kidnapped him and locked him in a room and started throwing hookers in there to try to tempt him away from being, going into the life of devotion to Christ. Not that they were against Christianity, and not that they were against the priesthood or anything. They just had other plans for their son, and so they were trying to keep him from making this mistake as they would have seen it. And but he didn't fall for it. He stayed the course, and as a result, we've got just some great works by this guy, and what we're going to talk about today are the 5 proofs for the existence of God. I think it's appropriate. Usually it'd be great to start a semester with that, but I mean, given that, Aquinas is the last guy we're going to talk about, we'll end with it. It's not as though the existence of God had never been discussed, though. Clearly, people had believed in God, disbelieved in God, given reasons for their belief in God, given their reasons to not believe in God. But with Aquinas approached it from a very Aristotelian, logical, rational approach in a way that just serves as an excellent way to understand that there are good, rational reasons for God's existence. That's not to say nobody else did that. I'm just saying Aquinas did it, and we get to benefit from it. Not only do we get a benefit from it, but there was this time in my personal life when I was in high school, I was wrestling with the existence of God. I was actually it really came later when I was in the Marines, but it started in high school, my senior year. I took some night school course. It was an advanced English course at night school, and the teacher, I'll say he smuggled it in. I can't imagine Albuquerque Public Schools wanting anybody to talk about God. Albuquerque is pretty left-wing, and they're pretty serious about taking an anti-religious approach to the public schools. So if and I know my other teachers were certainly antagonistic towards, the faith. But this guy brought in Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways, and 5 proofs for God's existence. And I had them, I listened to them, I learned them, and then when I was in the Marine Corps, I was having a real crisis of faith because, my whole high school career, we'll call it, was just being attacked by my teachers. Not that they're going, you Holzer, they weren't personally attacking me. They were attacking Christianity and the faith, okay? And it wasn't like explicit. They weren't going, I hate Christianity. Christianity is false. They didn't do it explicitly, they did it implicitly. They made implications. They implied that Christianity was false, okay? We came, you go to your science class and your teacher's telling you, we came from nothing by nothing, with time and chance by accident. Well, that's not what I was taught. I was taught that God created the world, right? So they're not saying Christianity is false, those words, they're implying Christianity is false. And they say if you believe in science, you will believe this. And of course, only rational people believe in science, and only irrational people would disagree with this statement. So implicitly, they're calling anybody who is religious irrational. And that was taught, ironically, not only in the science class, but those kind of things were taught in the history class from non-scientists, and in the English department from grammarians, people who were supposed to be doing grammar, right? And then in the history course, you get taught about the evils of religion, right? How all the wars were started by religious people, correct? The Crusades, the Inquisitions, right? And they kind of gloss over the wars that killed hundreds of millions of people, not even wars, but gulags, and those being the communists, right? They gloss over that, probably because it's their side that did it. So I got to the Marine Corps because I just came out of high school, and I took a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, of 3 semesters of college where the treatment was the same and at a more intense level. And I get to the Marine Corps, and I'm just like so full of doubt about God because I've just been taught my whole life that God doesn't exist. And those who believe in him are not that smart. And that those who believe in him must believe in him by faith. And that faith is irrational belief. It is not reasoned belief. Okay? That faith is blind faith. And I would almost bet that you too have gone through that. And maybe even worse, because I don't believe the times have gotten any better. I think they've gotten worse. So my suspicion is that it's been a lot worse for you. Okay? And that there may be some teachers who are downright explicitly antagonistic towards religion. Well, anyway, it's not new. It's not new. You know, Jesus said, right, that, you know, they're going to hate you, but they don't hate, you know, they don't hate Christ because of the followers. They hate the followers because of Christ. Okay? They hate he that is in you. I mean, if they call you a hypocrite, it may be true you're a hypocrite. But who is not a hypocrite? Can you name one person who has not committed hypocrisy? Can you name one person who's not belligerent? Can you name anybody who is without sin? So to call somebody a Christian, you know, to dislike them because of their hypocrisy or their humanity, that is, that they are not perfect, is ridiculous, because we can point the finger equally at anybody and everybody, right? The reality is they hate you because he who is in you. They hate Christ. They are anti-Christ. They do not want the lordship of Jesus. Okay? And they deny the truth of the gospel. Paul himself writes, Paul, a servant of Christ Jesus, called to be an apostle and set apart for the gospel of God. The gospel he promised. What does the word gospel mean, folks? Evangelion means good news. If you're an evangelist, you're an evangelista. That means you're one who spreads the good news. It says the gospel, the good news he promised beforehand through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures regarding his Son, who as to his early life was a descendant of David, and through the Spirit of holiness was appointed the Son of God in power by his resurrection from the dead, Jesus Christ our Lord. Through him we received grace and apostleship to call all the Gentiles, that'd be the non-Jews. Up until that point, Christians were spreading the gospel to the Jews, to the obedience that comes from faith for his name's sake. And you also are among those Gentiles who are called to belong to Jesus Christ. Now he's writing to the Romans. The Romans was a church that had many Jews in it, and they were kind of being snotty to the non-Jews, okay? To all in Rome who are loved by God and called to be his holy people, grace and peace to you from God our Father, from the Lord Jesus Christ. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you. Here's a little word for you. The word Christ is Christos. It means anointed. All right? It is the Greek version of the Jewish word Messiah. So when you see Messiah or Christ, they are the same meaning. One is Jewish, one is Greek. If you see hallelujah versus alleluia, alleluia is the Greek transliteration of the Hebrew word hallelujah, which means praise Yahweh or Jehovah, or it's not Jehovah because they didn't have vowels. We don't really know how the tetragrammaton was pronounced. But it's praise the Lord. And the reason they say Lord when they get to Yah, which is short for the tetragrammaton, the divine name of God, is because they didn't want to take the Lord's name in vain. So instead of saying the name, they would say Adonai, which means Lord. Okay? First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is being reported all over the world. God, whom I serve in my spirit in preaching the gospel of his Son, is my witness, how constantly I remember you. This is a personal letter, remember. It's one of the corporate letters to the Romans. In my prayers at all times, and I pray that now, at last, by God's will, the way may be opened for me to come to you. I long to see you so that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong. That is, that you and I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith. I do not want you to be unaware. By the way, that gift, if I'm correct, is money, that spiritual gift. And you know that because at the end of the letter it mentions it, and there's a type of writing style they use called inclusio. Okay, that's not on a test or anything, just me showing off that I took some exegesis. Anyways, I long to see you that I may impart some gift to you, blah, 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 spiritual gift to be recorded. That I planned many times to come to you, but have been prevented from doing so until now, in order that I might have a harvest among you, just I have had among the other Gentiles. I am obligated both to Greeks and non-Greeks, both to the wise and the foolish. That is why I am so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. For in the gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith, from the first to the last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Now, of course, you hear the word faith, right? Faith is a type of belief, but it is not without evidence. Scripture even specifically says faith is what? The evidence of things hoped for. Did you hear that? Faith is what? The evidence of things hoped for. Right, I'm sorry. I apologize. Let me go backwards. It's the substance of things hoped for. The evidence of things unseen. I apologize. The substance of things hoped for. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. There is substance to faith, and there is evidence of it. You have a cold. You have sniffles. You go, I have a cold. Do you see colds? You smell them. Do you hear them? You have evidence from the effects that the cause is a cold. You understand how that works? Is it blind faith? No. There's some evidence in there. Is there not? The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against the godlessness and the wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that no man is without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images to look like mortal human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. Therefore God gave them over to their sinful desires. Other translations have it lusts. God gave them over to their lusts. It says God gave them over to the sinful desires of their hearts, to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth for God for a lie, and worshipped and served the created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to their shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves a due penalty for their error. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what they ought not be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, which means faithfulness. They no love, no mercy. Although they knew God's righteous decrees that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. I could go on. How offensive. Right? Can you imagine preaching that today? Holy moly. No wonder they killed Paul. And they did. The gospel is good news, but it is highly offensive to those who seek to preach falsehoods. You can see why people hate Christians, because we believe this stuff. You understand that, right? We believe this stuff. And others do not. And then we tell them they are wrong. And so they do what? They hate us for it. Would you agree? I mean, it shouldn't shock you that you're hated. If you go to a church and are never offended, you might have a problem with the church. The church should be prophetic. By prophetic, I don't mean telling the future. I mean pointing people away from sin and reminding us that the gospel is that we are saved from this sin, from the depravity and wickedness, all right? Now that, though it preaches, is not why I read that. I read it because the Apostle Paul says that though God has made himself known through the creation, they did not worship him. Instead, they turned away and worshiped the creature rather than the creator. Okay? God has made himself known through the creation, and which brings us to Thomas Aquinas' discussion of God's existence. That those who deny God's existence do so in the face of his revelation of himself. The natural revelation that he exists. The is of existence. You recall that? That God exists. If God exists, then we can know that if he exists, then he'll have a will. And if he has a will, it may not be our own. That's the difference between lordship. His lordship and ours. Whose will shall we follow? Thank God for his grace and mercy, because unfortunately we all have gone astray and followed our own will rather than his. Okay? Start talking about Thomas Aquinas' 5 proofs for the existence of God so that you can have confidence that God exists. When I was in the Marine Corps, like I said, I went through some great doubts. And what ended up happening is what that teacher taught me in high school came back to me. And it helped solidify my belief that God does in fact exist. And I could listen to the arguments the people who talked to me gave, and I realized those are horrible arguments that you gave against the existence of God. So I'm very thankful that this teacher smuggled these in. Had he not done so, who knows what would have happened in my life. Proof 1, the argument for motion. Everything that is moved has a mover. There is motion. Therefore, something must have acted upon it to move it. It is either moved by something else, or it can move itself. We call this the prime mover. It cannot just go back onward to infinity, backwards. If at one time, let's pretend, even matter existed, and we're not even talking just matter, okay? We're talking metaphysical motion in that, okay? going from potency, right, potential, to actuality, right, has to have a cause, that is the motion. If there is no motion, there will not be another motion, unless that prime mover, that first moved object, can move itself. Whatever it is that had the ability to make motion upon something else, we call that God. Now that sounds pretty basic, right? You could even say that that's the physical, you could even say the physical world exists independently of a mind, right? That exists independently, and somehow it moved on something else. Except for two things. First, it has to move, have the ability to move on its own without being moved upon. And two, it has to have the will to do so. That first mover, we call the prime mover, it's the argument from the prime mover, is God. I'm going to stop there because some of you are like, what do you think? What's your thoughts on that? Do you understand what I mean by that? You do. You do. Could you articulate it? Why not? You just heard it. If you understand it, why can't you articulate it? Well, yeah, but what does the word prime mean? It means first, right? That means there's nothing before that, okay? So anything that has motion, think about it, is moved upon by some force. You don't see the force, do you? No, you just see the results of the force. Now, analogously, I'm using physical objects. But even your mental activity takes motion, okay? Do you understand what I'm saying? So everything in motion has to have something move or act upon it. Your will can act upon your thoughts and cause them, okay? You cannot go backwards to infinity. You know what infinity is, right? Just keeps going, right? You have to have a first motion. So whatever that first motion is, that self-mover that has the power, potency, that's where you get that word potency, like omnipotent, all-powerful. Remember we discussed this? Whatever can actualize that first motion, we call God. Number two, the argument from causality. First one is the argument from motion. The second one is the argument from causality. Everything that is caused has a cause. Everything that has a cause, or that is caused, has a cause. Now, I often say effect. Everything that is an effect has a cause. This desk in front of me, all the desks in front of me, are effects. They have a cause. The clouds in the sky, they are effects. They have a cause. You, and y'all have cause. Your parents have causes. Their parents before them. All have causes. We talk about evolution. Starting before life had a cause. The cause of the earth. The cause of the universe. Then you go, and then I remember Corporal Ski getting in an argument with Corporal DeVrent about the existence of God. And DeVrent goes, well, how did we get here? Ski, like he was so smug, goes, it's called evolution, and then he cussed at him, of course. Ski couldn't articulate evolution if he wanted to. He just spouted off that word as though that's the catch-all, end-all, right, answer. Well, that's all fine and well, but let's go before evolution. let's pretend it happened by chance, an accident, over time. Let's go before life. Let's go before the earth. And let's go to the dawn of the universe. It's called the Big Bang, you idiot, right? I can hear Ski saying. Right. In order to have a Big Bang, there has to be something to explode, to bang. Prior to the universe's existence, there was what? Nothing. From nothing, what do you get? Nothing is not something, folks. You cannot say with enough time, you'll get something from nothing. Because nothing means there is no time. Time does not exist in nothingness. There is no vacuum of space in nothingness. Vacuum is something. That's why I taught you this in the discussions of metaphysics. What does it mean to exist? Does space exist? Yes, it does, because it has extension. It exemplifies one or more properties. In nothingness, there is no space. There is no time. There is no dimension. There is no matter. If nothing ever existed. But the universe was caused. So what caused it? It could not be the universe. The universe can't cause itself because it did not exist. It did not explode into existence from itself. Now, for those of you who have learned anything about the Big Bang Theory, it comes from a guy, Monsignor Lemaitre. And does anybody know what the word Monsignor is, where that comes from? Has anybody heard that before? It's a title in the Roman Catholic Church. It's a title of honor. There's a guy, my old priest, I'm a Catholic, old priest that I used to go at St. Vincent de Paul. His name's Monsignor Bill Young. Great guy. I asked him how he got Monsignor title. He says, yeah, I don't really know. So, but whatever. Monsignor Lemaitre was a physicist, and he came up with the Big Bang Theory that as the universe expands, it's getting older, and as it gets older, the universe is expanding, and the stars in space are growing. Okay? Stars are not going into space. Space is expanding. It's like taking a balloon and drawing a bunch of ink dots on it and blowing up the balloon, and the balloon represents space and the dots represent the stars. And as the universe expands, so too do the planets and stars and galaxies and whatnot in it. But if you go back in time, it shrinks down to nothing. That's why they think there's a Big Bang, that there was an origin of the universe that came from a singularity, a singular event, right? That initiated the existence of the universe. I hope I've got the right name. I'm sure it's Karl Popper, but I could be wrong. Insulted Lemaitre about this theory, and he called it the Big Bang Theory to insult him, not to create a new catchy name, although the Big Bang Theory is now and has been the label it's been given, okay? Why did at the time, why did they not like the Big Bang Theory? Because originally, atheists believed that the Big Bang Theory was evidence for the existence of God. That they were trying to show that there was a cause of the effect of the universe that was not, in fact, the universe itself. Because at that point, they were trying to prove that the universe was eternal. That the universe was everlasting, that it has lasted an infinite amount of years, and it has always existed, and we've traversed this actual infinite. But the Big Bang Theory suggests that the universe is only roughly around, I say only because it sounds like a big number, but, 17 billion years old, right? And, of course, that's a little older than we are. But in the world of infinity, right? That's not that long. So they were saying, you're trying to prove that the universe has only existed for 17 billion years. You're trying to show that God caused the universe. You're trying to use proof 2, the argument for causality. That if nothing at one time existed, then nothing would ever exist. Something does exist, therefore something must have caused it. Whatever it is that caused that, we call God. You cannot go back an infinite number of causes. You have to get to a first cause. Just like you have to have that first motion, you have to have the first cause. All right? All effects have a cause. You cannot go back an actual infinite. You would never get here. We've talked about this, right? We have talked about this. Do you recall me saying this? You know why, right? Because if we go back a billion years, we'd still have another billion years before it, right? And if we went back a billion years there, we'd still have a billion years before that. And how about a trillion or a quadrillion or a sextillion? That's a lot. Quintillion, sextillion. I don't know what the seventh is, but then you got octillion. Is it septillion or something? I mean, just these incredible numbers. If a billion has 9 zeros, a trillion has 12, a quadrillion has 16 zeros, then you have 24 as a sextillion after a quintillion. That's a lot of years, man. You'd never get here, but we're here. So there must have been a first event, a first cause, or a first effect, which means there has to be a first cause. That first cause cannot be the universe, because the universe is the effect. So whatever it is, the universe, remember, is a physical thing. Time, space, matter, energy. That's the effect. Whatever caused it is not time, space, matter, energy. We call that God. Okay? Keep in mind that first cause, one not only had to exist, it had to choose to cause the universe. It had the power to do it. Yes?
Wait, so can God just close everything up? Like, can he go make it all?
If God wants to get rid of the universe, God can certainly get rid of the universe.
Like everything back to nothing?
Well, you wouldn't go back to nothing because God exists. God, that's the point, is it's impossible for nothing to exist.
Okay, so that's
but the universe didn't exist. The universe, we're going to go there right now. Right now is called proof 3, the argument from necessity and contingency. I should say contingency and necessity. The argument from contingency and necessity. The world, remember, the world in metaphysics is understood to be everything that exists. But the universe, the physical universe, is not a necessary entity. To be necessary means that it must exist in all possible worlds. Imagine a possible world where squares are circles, right? They're not. So a square in all possible worlds is rectangular. Make sense? Imagine a world where 2 plus 2 equals 5. You can't. Once you know what 2 plus 2 is, you can't imagine a possible world in which 4 is 5. Okay? Makes sense? That's necessary. Can you imagine a possible world where you don't exist? Yes, you can. There was a time when you actually didn't exist. Can you imagine a possible world where the universe doesn't exist? Yes. In fact, we do. The fact that the Big Bang Theory caused the universe, right? So we can conceive of a world where the universe did not come into existence, where God did not create the universe. Therefore, the universe is contingent. Therefore, the universe is contingent. However, in every possible world, there is one necessary thing. There has to be at least one being that is necessary. That is, there has to be something that cannot not exist. There's not a state of existence where something doesn't exist. That whatever that being is, we call God. That is, a necessary being is one that you cannot conceive of non-existence. Okay? So if you imagine all possible worlds, there cannot be a possible world out there where there isn't something that exists. Whatever that thing is that is necessary, that is God. The universe is not that thing, because the universe is contingent. What does it mean to be contingent? You could imagine it doesn't exist. Okay? Does that make sense to you? It's difficult, I know. And it's deep, I know. But just imagine no physical thing existing. It doesn't mean the world doesn't exist. It just means the physical world doesn't exist. But if there is a world that exists, where the physical world doesn't exist, there's one thing in there that does. And that we call that God. A necessary being is one that has to exist in all possible worlds. Okay? Think about Plato and the ideas. The idea of 2 + 2 = 4 exists even if the physical world doesn't exist. Make sense? The laws of logic still exist. But who created the laws of logic? By the way, the Greeks were aware of this, so were the apostles. The Gospel of John opens, in the beginning was the Word, and he uses the Greek word, the Logos. Okay? The Logos was known, this ancient wisdom, this knowledge, before the universe existed. Okay? That's what they would refer to as a Logos, and then John says, the Logos, God was the Logos, and the Logos was God. And then the Word, the Logos, became flesh and dwelt amongst us. Proof 4. Argument for perfection. The fact that we know we have a concept of perfection. We know that the perfect exists. We can sit there and complain about humans and how imperfect they are. You know why we could complain about how imperfect humans are? Because we have an idea that perfection exists. We understand the concept of perfection. And if we understand the concept of perfection, it exists. And if it exists, we call that God. We are not it. And we tell each other about how imperfect we are all the time. In fact, men will idealize women, and they're so beautiful and gorgeous, and then they start dating women, and then the girls will idealize their boyfriends, and idealize how perfect the guy is, and then 3 months later, after the chemicals wear off, and now you start to see the flaws, and now you start to tell each other what they need to fix in order to be perfect, right? The answer is yes. I've gone through it myself. Young love, right? You're all dopey in love. So proof 4, from perfection. Proof 5, the argument from design. If there's a designer, if there's a design, there's a designer. What is the eye for? Nobody knows what your eyeballs are for?
To see.
That's pretty obvious, isn't it? Right. And the word design has to do with the telos, going back to Aristotle, right? So you see an eye, you know that it's for seeing, right? You go to a house in the desert, right? And you walk up to you go, wow, that's amazing how the desert just wore away all of the dirt, and in such a way that it created walls and windows and a heater and an air conditioner and right? No, you wouldn't do that. You go, somebody came here and designed this house, right? You see what design is because you know that heaters are for heating, coolers are for cooling, windows are for seeing through, walls are for keeping out the elements. You understand that, right? You see the design. You see the design in the hand to grab the reproductive organs to reproduce, the digestive tract to digest, correct? You catch all that. The mind to think. These buildings have been designed. If I have never seen the architect, it does not mean the architect doesn't exist. I would not infer anything else other than an architect did exist, so construction workers did put the building together. I don't have to see them, right? I see design all around me. I see it in humanity. I see it in animalia. I see it in societies, how they are structured. I see it in the natural world. I see it in the stars. When we look under a microscope, we see the design of the cell that is designed to metabolize energy. Make sense? And if there's a design, I don't have to physically see the designer. All I need to see is the work of his hands. And I know he exists. Because God has made it known throughout the world, right, of his existence. Through the creation. That your eyes are to see. And you say, well, many will say we evolved. Yes. By chance. What is a chance? What is the chance? They say 1 in 10 to the 69th power that you get life. Life, not humans. From nothing. With chance. Things do not get better. What do things do? With chance. Fall apart. Leave a car alone for 10 years. A brand new car. Do not run it. Do not move it. Do you think it'll get better? No, the hoses will rot. They'll turn to dust. You take fluffy cats, house cats. You breed them all nicely. You put them out in the wilderness. They die, and what happens? They revert back to generally short-haired predator cats that are kind of cool. Stilt cats. They didn't get fluffier, prettier, nicer. They didn't evolve. They devolved. They went back to the more basic sense. Things don't go build themselves together with time. They fall apart. If there is a design to something, there is a designer. We know that. The universe is a designed entity. Therefore, we ask, who designed it? The universe is an effect. It came into existence. We ask, who caused it? The universe is in motion. We ask, who moves it? And we can judge the universe and its contents as not perfect. And we ask, then, what is perfect? And out of these 5 ways, we can see that God has made himself known through the creation so that no man is without excuse, just as the Apostle Paul said. There's the moral argument. Paul brought up a lot of things about immorality, and some of you may have been offended, and I highly suspect you would be. If you're offended, it's because you believe there's something immoral that's been said. If you believe that there's something moral that's been said, it's because you believe in objective morality. Where did that morality come from? The perfect moral being. Is morality made up? And if so, then you got nothing to complain about. We just make it up, right? Who are you to tell me which morality I follow? But if real objective morality exists, morality that I don't create, then we have to ask, what is the source of that morality? And it is not humans. We either comply with the morality or we do not comply with the morality. If I am wrong, then prove it to me. You would be pointing to God. But then I ask, which God? Okay? As for me, I'm going to serve the Lord, and I'm going to serve it through the lordship of Jesus. And that's the religion that Paul was preaching from when he talked about the sins he was talking about. Okay? Does that make sense to you guys? Argument for morality. If there's objective morality, then there must be an objective moral lawgiver. That means that's not us. We didn't create it. And that moral lawgiver is God. All right. I know I ran out of time. There's way too much. I went 5 minutes over, and I really appreciate you being patient with me today. It is our last day after all, so I wanted to get through it, but I appreciate it. Thank you. The final will be on the day of the final. I will place it online. Once you take said final, once you take the final, your grade should be available in numeric form, because I'm going to set it all up to where, you know, all the grades are weighted, and you'll be able to look at your grade and you'll know what you got in the class. Okay? Any questions?
What day is that on?
I don't know, it's on the website. I know if I have a senior in here, I know I've got to get her, I do have one, and I gotta get her final by this Friday. It will be up, I'll have it uploaded by Friday, I can tell you that.
So you can take any time?
No, I'll make it open on the day of the final.
Okay.